What's going on, family? Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Let's continue to examine 100 years of world championship fights. Now, on December 3rd, 1926, Irish welterweight star from Elizabeth, New Jersey, was also a world welterweight champion. They called him the Toy Bulldog, and his name was Mickey Walker. He would win a very suspicious and controversial decision over Theodore Tiger Flowers, 10 rounds, to win the World Middleweight Championship crown. The fight took place in Chicago Coliseum. Mickey Walker stepped on the scales weighing 155 pounds, and Theodore Tiger Flowers would weigh 159 pounds. 11,000 anticipated spectators would gross $80,000 to $90,000 for that fight. That was incredible. The referee for that bout was Benny Yeager. Now, who was Benny Yeager? In his boxing career, he was known as the Tipton Slasher. He had 81 total bouts, 52 wins, 8 losses, 30 knockouts, and he was stopped 4 times. He was in the ring with fighters such as Ben Jordan. 1902, he would lose that fight. It would be for the British Featherweight Championship belt. 1900, he would defeat young Corbett II, who was a champion in his day. In 1900, he would also face George Dixon. He would have a George with George Dixon. 1902, he would defeat Abe Attell. Abe Attell was a featherweight champion. Would also lose to Kid Herman, Monty Baldwin, and Packy McFarlane. But Benny Yeager would be the deciding factor of Mickey Walker defeating Tiger Flowers. And what was interesting about that, those who booed Tiger Flowers coming into the ring because of the color of his skin cheered for him and booed the decision when the fight was over. Because many of them thought that Theodore Tiger Flowers had totally out-hustled Mickey Walker. Now, Tiger Flowers was dropped in the 9th round. He was shook a little bit, but he had Mickey Walker's nose bloody, eyes busted. Mickey Walker had fractured his hand. He actually staggered Mickey Walker several times. He outclassed him. You see, Tiger Flowers was a southpaw. Mickey Walker was a two-fisted fighter, very hard puncher, but he couldn't handle the right jab of Tiger Flowers. Tiger Flowers didn't really throw too many straight punches. He was somewhat looping. And Harry Greb, after his first fight with him in 1924, had made a statement that Theodore Tiger Flowers, if he were to straighten up his punches, no one would ever beat him. He said he was the hardest puncher, the most difficult fighter and opponent that I ever faced. And Harry Greb had faced Gene Tunney 5 times. But be that as it may, Mickey Walker would defeat Theodore Tiger Flowers on the night of December 3rd, 1926. Let's take a look at Theodore Tiger Flowers one more time. He'd be in the ring with Kid Norfolk, June 5th, 1922, in Ponce de Leon Park in Atlanta, Georgia. He also faced Jamaica Kid between 1922 and 1925, fought him 8 times. Panama Joe Gans, December 19th, 1920. Joe Gans was a colored middleweight champion. He would also face Maxie Rosenblum, who would become a world light heavyweight champion, October 15th, 1926, July 4th, 1927, then again November 9th, 1927. And he would face Johnny Wilson, world middleweight champion, December 9th, 1924. Flowers knocked out Wilson in 3 rounds, New York's Madison Square Garden. But unfortunately for Tiger Flowers, he'd be stopped by Sam Langford in the 2nd round. Theodore Tiger Flowers was some fighter. He would unfortunately pass away during the course of a procedure removing scar tissue from his eyes. Sam Langford was some fighter. He took the Mexican Heavyweight Championship crown from Sam McVeigh. That was an impressive victory. We would face fighters as George Godfrey, who was a colored heavyweight champion. Tiger Flowers, who was the first black world middleweight champion. Harry Wills was also a colored heavyweight champion 22 times. Kid Norfolk was a colored light heavyweight champion. Sam McVeigh. 15 times, he was a colored heavyweight champion. Joe Jeanette, 14 times. He was a colored heavyweight champion. He would face Jack Blackburn 6 times. Barbados Demon, Joe Walcott, 1904, 15-round draw. Joe Gans in 1903, he would defeat him, 15 rounds. Baltimore Demon, young Peter Jackson, 6 times. He would even be in the ring with a fighter by the name of Dave Holly. Now, Dave Holly fought in the Battle Royale at the Broadway Athletic Club in Philadelphia, March 5th, 1900. And some of the participants that faced Dave Holly in that Battle Royale was Dave Irvison, Toby Banks, Ollie Tolson. Incredible. Dave Holly's manager was Billy McCarney and Doc Nolte. He was born March 2nd, 1881 in Westchester, Pennsylvania. He died July 25th, 1912. He was 31 years of age at the time of his death. And he would reside in Camden, New Jersey. Now, he stood 5 foot 8.5 inches. He was a lightweight. And he had a 72.5-inch reach. Fought from 1900 to 1910. Had a record of 76 wins, 30 losses, 30 knockouts. He'd be in the ring with Joe Gans. He would lose to Joe Gans. October 14th, 1902. December 7th, 1903. He would defeat Joe Gans. Be in the ring with Jack Blackburn. May 4th, 1903. 1 win and 1 loss. Belford Walcott. December 30th, 1903. He would defeat him. Kid Williams. June 2nd, 1904. Dixie Kid. October 15th, 1904. That would be a draw. Sam Langford, November 4th, 1904. And we defeat Sam Langford. Joe Walcott, September 10th, 1904. Lose to him. And January 25th, 1906, he would lose to him again. George Cole, December 17th, 1904. Ruff Turner, December 17th, 1904. Jeff Clark, Joplin Ghost, January 13th, 1910, he would lose to him. Now, Dave Holly was credited for being the first fighter to master the shoulder roll. He was an outstanding fighter and doesn't really receive recognition. But I wanted to give some recognition to Dave Holly. An outstanding fighter he was. And he was an opponent of Sam Langford. Sam Langford was an opponent of Tiger Flowers. January 21st, 1927. 21-year-old Fidel LaBarber defeats 29-year-old Elkie Clark, 12 rounds, for the vacant World Flyweight Championship crown, New York's Madison Square Garden. 16,000 in a crowd. Clark retires January 26, 1927, because of an eye injury. On that card, you also had Newsboy Brown upset Frankie Gennaro, 10 rounds. Now, who was Fidel LaBarber? Born September 29th, 1905 in the Bronx, New York. He died October 2nd, 1981. He was 76 years of age at the time of his death. And he would reside in Los Angeles, California. Had the pleasure of meeting Fidel LaBarber. He stood 5 foot 3 inches. He was a flyweight. Had a 66-inch reach. Fought from 1924 to 1933. 90 total bouts as a professional. 69 wins, 15 losses, 16 knockouts, and 6 draws. As an amateur, he had 44 total bouts, 41 wins, 1 loss, 18 knockouts, and 1 draw. Now, he fought fighters, the who's who of boxing. You see, between the age of 14 and 16, LaBarber would win 25 bouts before winning the AAU Flyweight and Pacific Coast Flyweight Championships. May 20th, 1925, he would beat Petey Cerrone in the National AAU semifinals. And he would win the 1924 Olympic Games. Now, Petey Cerrone would be the young man that Henry Armstrong would take the World Featherweight Championship belt from in New York's Madison Square Garden, 1937. And at that time, Armstrong was the first black American featherweight champion of the world. But his opponent's name was Elkie Clark. Who was Elkie Clark? His name was Williams Clark. He was born January 4th, 1898 in Bridgeton, Scotland. He died September 22nd, 1954. He was 58 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Glasgow, Scotland. He stood 5'3". He was a flyweight. Had a 65.5-inch reach. Fought from 1921 to 1927. He had 47 total bouts, 30 wins, 12 losses, and 20 knockouts. He was only stopped once. And what was interesting about Elkie Clark, for 2 champions under the name Kid. He defeated Kid Kelly for the BBB of C flyweight vacant championship belt. It was vacated by Jimmy Wild. He would also unify the BBBC, the EBU, Commonwealth British Empire Championship. He would defeat Kid Sox. That would be the flyweight championship belt. Let's take a look of the fight that took place January 21st, 1927, between 21-year-old Fidel Barber and 29-year-old Elkie Clark. Now here we have Fidel Barber to your right and Elkie Clark to your left. Elkie Clark was a champion himself. Here you have Fidel Barber. Walks away from Elkie Clark as he's sleeping on the canvas. It was for the vacant flyweight championship belt. Fidel Barber, easy victory over Elkie Clark. Fight took place January 21st, 1927. March 25th, 1927, 23-year-old Charles Bud Taylor and 18-year-old Tony Canzoneri drew 10 rounds for the vacant NBA Bantamweight Championship belt. It was at the Coliseum in Chicago. Referee was Joe Cherinsky, and the promoter holds on to the famous $4,000 diamond-studded belt. It was Charles Taylor. It was 87 wins, 16 losses, 12 draws, and 25 knockouts. Tony Canzoneri had 34 wins, 1 loss, 4 draws, and 9 knockouts at the point of that fight. Who was Charles Bud Taylor? He was known as the Blonde Terror of Terre-Haute. He was born July 22nd, 1903, Terre-Haute, Indiana. He died March 9th, 1962. He was 58 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Terre-Haute, Indiana. And he stood 5'5.5". He was a bantamweight. Had 66-inch reach. Fought from 1920 to 1931. Had over 100 total bouts. 70 wins, 22 losses, and 37 knockouts. Being in the ring with California Joe Lynch. Midget Smith, who he defeated. Eddie Shaw. Abe Goldstein. Chick Shuggs. Ignacio Fernandez. And Santiago Zarillo. Also being in the ring with Pancho Villa. Memphis Pound Moore, Benny Bass, and Al Singer twice. He would lose to Al Singer twice. Goldie Hess, Johnny Vaca, and Joey Sangora. Tony Canzoneri was born November 6, 1908, in Slindale, Louisiana. He died December 9, 1959, in New York's 51 years of age at the time of his death. He stood 5'4". He was a lightweight and had a 65-inch reach. Fought from 1925 to 1939. Had a total record of 171 bouts, 137 wins, 24 losses, 44 knockouts, 10 draws. He was only stopped once. With 18 world champions, 6 Hall of Famers, including fighters such as Kid Chocolate, Billy Patrol, Baby Alice Minzy, Battling Shaw, Al Singer, Charles Bud Taylor, Jimmy McLarnin, Jackie Kid Berg, Frankie Click, Johnny Dundee, and Benny Bass. It was a very good fight between those two men. It took place March 25th, 1927. And it was for the vacant NBA Bantamweight Championship belt, which no one won. Fight ended in a draw. On October 12, 1926, the future world heavyweight champion, Boston Gob, Jack Sharkey, outworks an aging Harry Wills. And Wills' charge was excessive holding and is disqualified on a foul. And this foul would cost him his colored world heavyweight championship belt. It was stripped, became vacant. George Godfrey would be the next colored heavyweight champion. Now, Jack Sharkey versus Harry Wills took place October 12, 1926, Ebbets Field, Brooklyn, New York. Referee was Pasty Haley. The 34-year-old Harry Wills stood 6 foot 2 inches and he had an 84-inch reach. He had a record of 85 wins, 7 losses, 7 draws, and 52 by the knockout route. 23-year-old Jack Sharkey stood 6 foot and had a 76-inch reach. He had a record of 23 wins, 6 losses, no draws, and 5 knockouts. He defeated George Godfrey September 21st, 1925, because George Godfrey would be the colored heavyweight champion when Jack Sharkey would hustle a victory over Harry Wills. And it's yet to be seen for full proof as to what really happened in that fight. Because Jack Dempsey was coming back in 1926, which was just a few months after this fight. And he would wind up fighting Gene Tunney. Harry Wills was known as the Black and the Brown Panther. He was born May 15th, 1892 in New Orleans, Louisiana. He died December 21st, 1958 in New Orleans, Louisiana. He had a 66-inch reach, but he was 66 years of age at the time of his death. And he would face fighters such as Sam Langford 22 times, Sam McVeigh, Jeff Clark, the Joplin Ghost. But he also faced George Kid Cotton in battling Jim Johnson. As for Jack Sharkey, his name was Joseph Paul Zuinskalos. He was born October 6, 1902, in Binghamton, New York. He died August 17, 1994. He was 91 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Boston, Massachusetts. I met Jack Sharkey as well. He stood 6 feet. He was a heavyweight, had a 76-inch reach. He fought from 1924 to 1936. He was in the ring with Tommy Loughran, Max Melling, Primo Carnera, Jack Dempsey, Mickey Walker, and Jack Delaney. Jack Delaney was a light heavyweight champion. He would defeat Paul Billenbach. Jack Dempsey, he fought so that Jack Dempsey can get back on track to get another opportunity at Gene Tunney. He would face Tommy Loughran. It was for the vacant heavyweight championship belt that was left over from Gene Tunney in 1928. They had created a tournament. And those two men would be the last two standing for that title. Jack Sharkey would also be in the ring with Mickey Walker. It would go 15-round draw. Jack Sharkey would be the heavyweight champion of the world 2 weeks later. Primo Carnera. Jack Sharkey would lose the title to him. 6 rounds. He would be stopped. They fought twice. Carnera would lose the first fight, but he wouldn't lose the second fight. And Max Melling would be the opponent that Jack Sharkey would lose to in 1930 on a foul, but he would defeat him in 1932 and become the world heavyweight champion of the world. That fight took place October 12, 1926, between the Boston Gob, Jack Sharkey, and the Brown Panther, Harry Wills. June 30th, 1927, Mickey Walker knocks out Tommy Milligan, London, England, to retain his middleweight championship belt. July 13th, 1927, Paulino Escudon stops Harry Wills 4 rounds in Brooklyn, New York. August 30th, 1927, Jimmy Slattery defeats Maxie Rosenblum For the vacant light heavyweight championship crown, 10 rounds. Maxie Rosenblum, close to 300 fights. Unbelievable fighter he was. And he would become the world light heavyweight champion. Slappy Maxie, they called him. Couldn't punch, but he could box. July 21st, 1927, Jack Dempsey rocked early and losing knocks out to Jack Sharkey. And he would get another opportunity at Gene Tunney on September 22nd, 1927. September 12th, 1927, Benny Bass defeats Red Chapman 10 rounds, Philadelphia, to win the vacant NBA featherweight championship belt. The next video will continue, and we'll start off on September 22nd, 1927, between Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey's famous long count. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Let's continue examining 100 years of world championship fights.